welcome to GBC News. And so our motherland Ghana stands tall when chocolate is mentioned. Many a tongue indulges in that sweet chocolatey chunk of fun, a hot drink of Milo, or all the derivatives from the pod. But do you know the cocoa story? Our history books tell us that one man called Tetteh Quashie, who brought the cocoa pod to our country, planted it, and decades later, we were at some point the world's leading producer of top quality beans. What many do not know is that the origins of this man is right here at Osu Ashanti. We are here today to tell the Tetteh Quashie story or listen to the account from his family members. Come with us and listen with rapt attention because you will have a lot to learn. Let's go. I do hope you have your listening ears because we are here to learn a bit of our history. I am Thelma Taki. Today I'm at Niwe in Osu Ashanti. Here, the beginnings of the legend that Tetteh Quashie is and the cocoa story. At the family residence, those he's left behind have all gathered here. They tell us that the ancestors are here in spirit, and those who are here today are also seated to receive us, and they will answer some of our questions. Mr. Jonathan Mate Hammond is the member of the governing board of the Tetteh Quashie farm, and he has joined our conversation today. Mr. Hammond, thank you for making time to join us for this chat. And Mr. Niayi Hammond is the Tetteh Quashie family secretary. He has also joined this conversation. Another Mr. Hammond, thank you for joining us on GBC News. So let's get straight. Thank you. Let's get straight to it. We know, or we've read about Tetteh Quashie and what he managed to achieve for the country. It's hard for a lot of people to imagine him as a little boy. Tell us about his childhood.
Tetteh Quashie sadly did not have any formal education, even though he could read and write Ga and then the Aquapan language, thanks to the Basel mission. In those days, our mothers and fathers who did not go to school were able to read and write our local languages. And that is how come he could write the Aquapan and then the Ga language and read and spoke as well. Secondly, his father was brassmith, popularly called Tetteh Hamlet, Mleku boy. So, Tetteh Mleku boy. As for the Hamlet, it's just the description name because of the work that he did. It is hammer because he used to hammer on beats his fabrications with hammer. That is why we call him Hamlet. But his real name was Tetteh Mleku boy. He migrated from Pram, Ningo Pram, and first settled in Tetteh, where he lived for some time. And then, after finding a job with his colonial master, that's the Basel missionaries, because of the work that he did, he was a brassmith. And that he was so skillful that they beckoned him to come to Osu. And that is how he left Tetteh to Osu. So Tetteh Quashie's father did not come from Tetteh. He came from Nungo Pram. And like every one of us, when you travel to another jurisdiction, you have to find a place where you can find your people. So he found Tetteh people to be his own people. That is the Nung Pram people, because there was Mate, Mama, Kodi, and other names. That's why he stayed in Tetteh for some time before he left. So there's a misconception that Tetteh Quashie's father came from Tetteh. He did not come from Tetteh. He came from Pram, Ningo Pram. Before he settled in Tetteh, before he finally settled in Osu here. And because of the Basel missionaries' work, going to Mampong was very easy for him to relocate himself also over there. So he was living between Accra, Osu here, and then Mampong, Equatorial, where he worked with the Basel missionaries because of his job as a blacksmith.
Yes, but what about Tetteh Quashie himself? You've told us about his father, but what was his childhood like, Tetteh Quashie himself? How did he grow up? His father moved from Pram, then to Tetteh, and then here to Osu Ashanti. When was he born, and what was his childhood like?
Tetteh Quashie was born in 1842, contrary to some of the records we have in our history books. 1842. 13 February specifically. And like I said, he did not have formal education. So throughout his childhood, he was learning the blacksmith job. From skills from his father. And that is how come he couldn't go to school. So right from his childhood, he started learning the job. That is why he became so skillful that he had to travel to Fernando Po to pursue greener pastures.
Okay, was it typical, Mr. Nyai, at the time for a young man? I'm not quite sure how old he was when he went to Equatorial Guinea, but was it something that a lot of people did at the time? What inspired Tetteh Quashie to go to Equatorial Guinea?
Yeah, what we have on records in the family book is that, due to his, how do we call it, the blacksmithing, the foreigners too, who came to the castle and were visiting the castle, they were patronizing his products. So that mostly inspired him that, I have to travel one day to the shores of Europe and then acquire greener pastures. But unfortunately, he went to Fernando Po and worked on the cocoa plantation, where he acquired interest in the cocoa business.
When he was in Ghana, was he interested in farming at all? Was he a farmer? Was he in agriculture of some sort? Or did that interest just come when he went to Equatorial Guinea?
Tetteh Quashie was a blacksmith. He wasn't a farmer. He got to know from the Basel missionaries who tried planting cocoa at that time. And that was how he got interested when he was at Fernando Po, because he had seen the crop before, or the fruit before. So he thought to himself, this is the crop that, or the fruit that the missionaries were trying to plant unsuccessfully. And that is how, when he was coming, he brought it to come and try it on Ghanaian soil, or the Goko soil, I must say. And fortunately, even though he wasn't an agronomist, with all the trials of the agronomists coming from Swiss, UK, and other places, somebody who did not even have formal education was able to make his trial of the cocoa pod or cultivation successful. So he wasn't a farmer.
I find that very interesting. And I'm sure that because of that history, there are some that may not have been too pleased that his attempts were successful when the Basel mission's attempts were, and even previous ones before that were not successful. Did those present any challenges to him in the initial stages of him trying to see if the seeds would germinate here?
Actually, Tetteh Quashie did not face any opposition. All that he was proud of was that through him, Ghana or the Gold Coast could boast of the cultivation of cocoa. And our fathers and our grandfathers were nursing it and they were distributing them. So he didn't face any challenge. And he never knew that his name was going to be prominent in Ghana and the world as large. He never knew.
It wasn't his vision when this started that he wanted to be a big cocoa farmer. He just brought some seeds home from travels because of the Basel mission experience. He tried it and they seemed to work. That's what you're saying. Did it work the first time?
The first time that he planted the seed, he actually planted it at our family house close to this place we are sitting now. We can go and show you the location, the exact location. And at that time, he also had the brassmith table or workshop over there. So that was where he was working, and he planted the seed, but could not germinate. And then he went to Tutu, where we had the family land. He also tried it there, but because of the fact that the place was a swampy place, there was so much water in the ground, it couldn't germinate. So he went back to Mampong, where he lived. And that was where his elder brother, Mate Kojo, gave him a land, which we have site plan presently here. The land, which is the farm, the present farm where he planted the cocoa. He started the successful one. And that was how the distribution started. And people became interested due to the fact that the British, our colonial masters, were so much interested in the product. People started planting it and selling them at exorbitant prices. But we never knew the benefit of cocoa in those days. Many people did not even drink cocoa, they did not eat the fruit. All that they were interested in is to plant them and give it to the British.
So the farmers were planting, and then when the harvest came, they just sold them to whichever company would buy them. I want to understand that system back then.
Yes, the farmers were just planting. They were not enjoying from the fruits. And Tetteh Quashie, after his death in 1892, the first export went to UK, Great Britain, and was specifically given to the Queen. At that time, Queen Elizabeth, in 1896. That was the first export. 2 bags, only 2 bags was exported, and that was the beginning of the exports of cocoa in Ghana.
So I'm hearing that even in his lifetime, cocoa was just something he had brought, a few seeds he had brought from Fernando Po. How many bags did he bring? I'm sure he brought a few if he wanted to plant some.
6 pods of cocoa, not bags. 6 pods of cocoa.
Now I understand, Mr. Hammond, why we have 6 pods sitting right here on top of us. The golden pod that has put Ghana's name on the map. We are telling the story of Tetteh Quashie, who hailed from Osu Ashanti. Today, his family has sat with GBC News, and they are giving us a piece of history. Mr. Hammond and Mr. Hammond have recounted Tetteh Quashie's early days, from the time that his father migrated from Pram Pram to Teshi and then to this part of Accra. as a blacksmith and how Tetteh Quashie, his son, learned the trade from his father before traveling to Equatorial Guinea for greener pastures. At that point, he came into cocoa farming and he brought 6 pods to Ghana. So in case you haven't sat through this entire interview with us, this is where we are. We want to understand what happened next. Mr. Hammond says that it was only after Tetteh Quashie died that Ghana first exported cocoa out of Ghana. So he did not even live to see what we would say is the beginning of the success of Ghana cocoa on the world market. But how does the family feel about all this, and how involved was the family when he started coming back with 6 pods? The Basel mission had failed. Where did he get the confidence that he would succeed after his initial attempt here at Osu failed and the 221 failed? What was the family's involvement in all this?
The family was a caretaker of the original farm, before it was handed over to the government. So the family took it over, and then they were nursing, planting, and then cultivating new crops into it.
Interesting. So the first few trees grew and they were successful. And how did it become so widespread, cocoa farming? Because from that one farm, now we have several, in fact, if not hundreds of thousands of people involved in it. Now there's so much more. How did the distribution begin in the early days from the initial few?
Okay, the distribution continued after Tetteh Quashie's death. And our fathers were so much interested in this, as well as Equatorial and Kumasi, the Ashanti region, and other places. The reason being that, like I said from the beginning, cocoa was seen as the black gold, and it was sold and bought at a very higher price by the British. So that was how come everybody got interested in it, including especially the chiefs in Mampong, Equatorial, and then the Ekropon chiefs and all the people of Ekropon, the people of Ekropon. So that was how it started. After the death of Tetteh Quashie, our fathers continued to nurse the cocoa and sell them out or give them out to our neighboring regions and even.
So, Mr. Hammond, you want to walk us through how the pictures on the walls, and then we'll walk through the room perhaps. So this is us recounting the history of Tetteh Quashie, and his family members here at Niue at Osu Ashanti are telling us the story. Mr. Hammond, I see this photo saying the house of Tetteh Quashie at Equatorial Mampon. Tell us about this.
Yeah, this is the house of Tetteh Quashie at Equatorial Mampon. And you can see on the inscription, we have in the center J.W. Hammond, who was the head of the family, but doubled also as the successor of Tetteh Quashie. So actually, this was the 3rd successor of Tetteh Quashie, J.W. Hammond. And you can equally see the source of the picture. This picture was taken in 1920.
Okay. So now I also see the house of the late Tetteh Quashie. Oh, this is where we are now, actually. Okay, tell us about this.
So this is the main family house of Tetteh Quashie. Again, you can see some family members, including Tetteh Quashie's sisters and other brothers. And we have in the left back J.W. Hammond, who was also the successor of Tetteh Quashie. This picture was taken in 1911, as we can see it there. And the source of this picture is Ghana Archives or Museum.
And of course, the pods we all love to see, a basket of it stationed right here. 6 pods representing the 6 pods that Tetteh Quashie brought with him from Fernando Po, which he cultivated and which has led to the success of Ghana cocoa as we see it today. And of course, we'll have a mini cocoa tree, which is also situated right here in the family house of Tetteh Quashie. They are so proud that a son of their soil, a son of their household, is the one that brought this honor to the country. So Mr. Hammond is still walking us through some of the iconic photos on the walls of this facility. This one says that Tetteh Quashie's family celebrating the pioneer of Ghana's cocoa in the first cocoa farm at Equatorial in 1951. So this is still several years after Tetteh Quashie had passed away.
The inscription says it all. It was after the instruction of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah that the family needed to go and celebrate Nkrumah and also pour libation in the farm so that the cocoa production will spread throughout the country for the maximum benefits that Ghana needs from it. So he instructed that we go and have a celebration and also pray. So on that day, there was a pastor and there was somebody, one of our great-grandfathers, who poured libation in the farm. That is the farm at Mampong, Equatorial. This happened in 1951. At that time, Kwame Nkrumah was the leader of government business. Everything here are symbolic. We have this color as the color of cocoa. That is why the wall. That is why we have painted it yellow. And then we also have the wall here. Yeah, this is a stone. Yeah, this is a stone house, not a mud house. It's a stone house. So this symbolizes the stone. And the stone is very, very thick. So that is the thickness. We cut it to the thickness, to the right thickness of the walls over here. So this also symbolizes the stone house and the thickness of it.
Okay. So this is the man that we are all celebrating today, the legendary Tetteh Quashie, who brought cocoa to Ghana and planted it successfully. This is his picture. But Mr. Hammond, I've been wondering, for someone who's called Tetteh Quashie and you are Hammond and you are claiming direct links to this man, how is a Hammond and a Quashie from the same family?
Very good. Anybody who is truly called Hammond is not a Ghanaian, because it's not Hammond, it's not a Ghanaian name. We have our grandfather Tetteh, Mleku boy, whom we usually called Tetteh Hamley, the father of Tetteh Quashie, and he had his brother as Mate Kojo Tetteh. So in those days, usually in those days, surnames was not common. Surname was not common. It was only in the beginning of the 19th century that people started adopting surnames. So when you have your children, you give them their local or indigenous names. And that is how come we have Tetteh Quashie named Tetteh Quashie. The Quashie, if you can check from the calendar, 1842, 13 February, he was born on Sunday. And that's how come it was named Tetteh, just like his brother Kojo, who was born on Monday. So the name Hammond came from Mate Kojo, who himself was not called Hammond. But because he worked with the Basel missionary, that their members of Tetteh Quashie, why they are actually not, because they are called Tetteh or they are called Quashie. This picture, as you see it, we have Tetteh Quashie born in 1850s and died in 1897. 97. Okay. 1897. Okay. This way intentional because this is the picture that is being circulated. But the dates over there are totally wrong. Tetteh Quashie died in 1892. And the first export was done, you can check the record, was done in 1896. You see? So this is a typical misinformation that goes around. This is one of them. Yeah, and we intentionally left it like that because when you go to the farm, this is what is there. When you go to the net, but if you want to read some of the stories about him, you will understand that he was really born in 1842 and died in 1892. He lived only 50 years. He died on Christmas Day, 25th December.
For a man who lived just half a century, the legacy that he's left behind for Ghana can only be described as legendary. The man, Tetteh Quashie, we are tracing his roots right here to Osu. His family, the Hammonds, are here. They've welcomed us. They have some papers to show us, and we'll be going to them also in a bit.
Yeah, this is one of the things he brought from Fernando Po. This mirror, he brought from Fernando Po. Yeah, and then drums you saw in the picture. That emanated from the celebration of Tetteh Quashie after the order or instruction of Kwame Nkrumah. These are the drums.
Okay. So when the celebration happened in 1951, you mean?
Yeah, these are the drums over here.
Okay. And what are these papers?
So these papers, I have selected some of them.
Okay.
These papers documents for the family. There are so many in this one and everywhere, and they are almost getting spoiled, as you can see over here.
So this is a statement of account re-grant of £250 awarded by government to the immediate relatives of the late Tetteh Quashie. So I'm seeing Madam Ayoko, the sister of the deceased, and her sons, daughters, and grandchildren. Yeah. There's actually a whole list. Did Tetteh Quashie have any children of his own? So
if you check this list, the list didn't start with his children.
Why is that? Why not?
This is because Tetteh Quashie did not survive, or no children survived him. So people around today claiming that they are descendants of Tetteh Quashie, I'm grandfather, I'm this, I'm this. They are not. They are not.
So it was the children of his siblings who inherited.
Siblings, yes. Siblings. It was the siblings who inherited him. Even before he was declared in 1927 as the pioneer of Ghana cocoa. Before he was declared, nobody claimed to be his relative.
After the declaration, yes, then people started coming forward.
The and the honor, they started coming. But when we were planting and distributing the cocoa, even without expecting anything much from it, apart from the pride that went with it, they were nowhere to be found. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So that is it. So we have documents to show. This document, this is the first award reward that was given to Tetteh Quashie's family after he was mentioned as the pioneer of cocoa in the Gold Coast by Sir Gorgin Gorgisbeck. You see?
So in his lifetime, this didn't come. But when he passed away?
Yes. It was when he passed away. And because he did not leave any children behind, you can say the distribution. It started from his sisters and their children and others.
A lot of the documents here, I'm seeing the Gold Coast Independent, the Daily Mail, and other, Why not take this to the archives?
Yes.
So they can be digitized and perhaps made into a more...
Because we did some refurbishment over here, and many of the people and many of the papers have spoiled. So we are contemplating keeping them safe by scanning them or digitalizing them and then send it to the archives, where we already sent some of them already. Our fathers did. This is where you can see all this, most of these pictures from. So this is the source of those pictures.
I see a hat, a sword, and some other things. Yeah. These look very traditional. What are we looking at, Mr.?
Yes, okay. We have the cap here. You can see the cap over there, red cap here. That is the cap Tetteh Quashie wore on this picture. That is the one he's wearing. And then this cap, this hat belongs to his nephew, J.W. Hammond. That is the successor, the third successor. And this cap also belongs to Tetteh Quashie himself. As for these ones, then we have, there was a slippers for Tetteh Quashie.
It's still here. I see it.
The slippers, yeah, that belongs to Tetteh Quashie. And then as for this sword, traditional sword, we were told by our grandfather that our grandfather, Tetteh Quashie, was very rich. One of the chiefs came to borrow money from him, and this is what he left behind, so that after repayment of the loan, he will recollect it. But the loan was never paid, and that is how we have kept this thing here.
But are they gold swords? Because what kind of metal is this that he would use that as, or more or less, a collateral for the loan?
It wasn't gold, but actually it was something symbolic, something that the chief himself cherished so much. Okay. That is why he brought it, and our father also willingly took it as a collateral.
That's fine. I know you've promised me that you send me to Tetteh Quashie's room, where he stayed for a bit, where he was raised for a bit. We'll just take a quick look there, and then we'll be back to wrap up this whole story. We are telling Ghana's cocoa story because it's National Chocolate Day. And as you bite into that little sweet that you love so much, remember the man that made it all possible, setting out on his journey right here from Osu Ashanti to Fernando Po, where he brought the 6 golden pods, which he planted for the 3rd time successfully at Mampong, and which has brought us this far in the story. So come with us. We are going into Tetteh Quashie's room next.
So this is the exact place or room where Tetteh Quashie was born and lived. The place we went earlier were where our fathers were staying. Yeah. But that place, woman does not stay in that place. So, but you can go and sleep there and then go back to your house. So this is the exact place where Tetteh Quashie was born, and this is where he stayed in his youthful time. It was a single room. It was actually a single room. So the actual room is behind. This is just a creation, an extension. Yeah, okay. It's an extension, and behind this room is where he established his workshop, okay. And also where he planted the spheres, the cocoa tree.
Of course, we want to see that. Of course. We can go and have a quick look. All right. Come on.
This is where he first planted the first one in Accra here. Because he has his workshop just close to this place. But because of the salty nature of the soil, it couldn't succeed. So that's how come he left Accra with a seed. God knows why he was trying that much to get the crop succeed. God knows why. And I can say that perhaps it was divine. This is a workshop where he worked as a brassmith independently when he graduated from his father, who was his master.
So we are fast coming to the end of our history lesson, telling Tetteh Quashie's story and the impact that his life has had on all our lives, really, because of what cocoa has done for the country. Here at Niue, where he hails at Osu Ashanti, his family members have been telling us a lot about the man that brought cocoa to Ghana. If Tetteh Quashie were alive today, and I think perhaps I'll ask this question of the head of the family, the acting head of the family. If Tetteh Quashie was alive today, what do you think he would say about the cocoa industry?
To be honest with you, we will be very, very proud.
So there's a lot of history that has been told today, and Mr. Jonathan, he's Mr. Hammond, Mr. Nyai Hammond, and I'm surrounded by Hammonds, basically, have told Tetteh Quashie's story.
We used to be rewarded with a lot of scholarships and employment at Cocoa Board and other incentives like their support, Cocoa Board support to the family at the annual Omowo Festival. And then what they do for us also is that they do give us cocoa products at the end of every year. Apart from that, we don't really enjoy anything.
What scholarships were you getting before?
So in the time past, we were enjoying a lot of scholarships. And I'm aware of my cousin, my uncle, Dr. Nyai Hammond, Michael Ogbede, and other people who have enjoyed government scholarships, especially during the time that there was no free education. Cocoa Board used to give us scholarships for the secondary schools, but because of the adoption of the free SHS, we are no more enjoying anything in terms of our education when we are talking about scholarships. So we are pleading with the government that it takes a look at the Tetteh Quashie's family. This is a family whose contribution to garnered economic growth has really helped the nation. And if we are not well taken care of, our cocoa and the production of it, the cocoa business will not also prosper. The only heritage and legacy we have as a family of Tetteh Quashie is the cultivation of cocoa, and we are very proud of it. And we are very much disturbed about the destructions of the cocoa farms into Galamsey sites and the degradation of the cocoa farm. We are pleading with government that it takes steps to address the issue so that the heritage of cocoa Tetteh Quashie will remain.
So the other Mr. Hammond, what are your last words? What do you want Ghanaians to remember when we talk about cocoa, when we talk about chocolates, especially as this season is here?
Yeah, we are pleading with the government to make a statue here at Osu and Mampong. and then played for the continuation of the scholarship, both locally and internationally. Because when you go to our archives, you can see that there are some magazines on the Daily Mail. Our late uncle, J.W. Hammond, was writing articles on cocoa, to the Daily Times in London. So we want the government to continue for us. Thank you very much.
I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you for sharing the story of Tetteh Quashie with us. Mr. Jonathan Martey Hammond is a member of the governing board of the Tetteh Quashie farm. Mr. Niayi Hammond is the Tetteh Quashie family secretary. And we had brief comments from an almost overwhelmed acting head of the Tetteh Quashie family, Mr. Alfred Ni Martey Hammond, and they've all been telling us the story of an illustrious son of the soil who brought cocoa all the way from Fernando Po to Ghana. We have been told, according to his children, his great-grandchildren that have told us the story today, that he worked as a blacksmith, and because of the experiences of the Basel mission in cultivating cocoa, when he went to Fernando Po and saw that cocoa was thriving there, he brought with him 6 pods and he planted the first seed right here, very, very close to where we are now. Today, cocoa has put Ghana's name on the map. And indeed, when Ghana cocoa is mentioned, a lot of respect goes all round. The family is proud that their son, an Osu Ashanti-born son, is now the herald of Ghana's cocoa. They are pleading that scholarships and others that they used to enjoy from the government since pre-colonial times and pre-independence times should be reconsidered. This is the story of Tetteh Quashie, and we've been telling it right here on GBC News. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Thelma Taki. We'll see you again another time. Bye-bye.
In Achema Koko, a village in the eastern region, cocoa farmer Isaka Awini starts his day at dawn. After completing his morning chores, he heads to the farm hut of his friend Abbas Ali, where they share a communal breakfast. With Abbas cooking and Isaka fetching water from a nearby well, they prepare for a day of work on Isaka's 10-acre cocoa farm, where weed clearing and pruning are on the agenda. The farm is an hour and 20-minute trek away, involving a motorbike ride followed by a steep mountain climb. It's been more than 1 hour climbing hills and descending valleys just to get to a cocoa farm in a cocoa village. It is not a walk in the park.
Na boosters na watete so ama yakuafo na tompo a yehu say no ebeboa yesene say yi maspring for empem for emfam ya adwuma no ma no de moaye.
Isaka Awini, a cocoa farmer, Isaka Awini, a cocoa farmer, claims the government's free pruning exercise is being exploited to extort money from unsuspecting farmers like himself.
Yeah, level stay no there. Ye chief one there. Be any hoba by edwuma ne bio. Brewu. Wa oba wo hudwuma dia meme ye no a metwa amantata afiri so etigu me so wo ho awie me ne mbusu ye adwuma. Enkwala no be any ho. Mia meba e wo afiri ye ho bai. Wo mbusa me se me papa me wo fu no kurapo asie nam he. Sebe ye adwuma ne de enkwala no mu se ye kwasi adwuma. Faso obi ani. Obi adwuma the whole year. Na cement 5 bars kurapo no wo mi yiro ho wontimi nto. Entwa. Fu no ana besa gisika ni nyina. Aha do betimi hu so kokurapa sore anabro sore ko fu kola bia ndi nechi. Anam say good no. But this time, I say I'm a moon to be how much saying sweet into Omunako. kuya juma pa de odi sase kera won pe onye mo se kuya juma ne kwasha juma ayampa yeso ye hwe no kra po me ye koko juma some years ni kra po me hu obu se me se koko no japade ben na me ya mintimi mponte kira sis men one bag sign obe kum so obe si dan ba kra po no se de won ho be fa kra po nye easy
ba na opese aban eyama
dia me hwe se ban ye man ne se fertilizer no omboaye aduro omboaye sisi no krapo no nyi nyina ho den na yepe metima ka se me gina ho sisi no sebe mo wo ho den kakra na betimi a edo na the last 2 years last 3 years the me betimi a ye dwuma na duru this year metimi ye endu ho sa ye te se machines so aba ama mo de do mfuye no ka ban so boaye sa machines no ana oboa mama machines no bo kofom ye nyina ye to a na gitse Ghana cocoa no the whole year yetiminya be say 2 tons prepare 3 tons asem ka wo yebitiminya more than 5 tons or 6 tons and then ya obia ni besako ku ya djuma no ne sa djuma ni nyina ya nya mboa bia mfiri ho a me gitse ku ya djuma de cocoa no Ghana cocoa be dum repi 500 baht per year.
Cocoa farmers cite illegal mining and lucrative vegetable farming as reasons for the decline of the industry. Isaka Awini, a cocoa farmer, notes that despite cocoa being a valuable crop, he's so poor he hasn't seen a bar of chocolate in 6 years.
Chocolate, if you do any.
Oh, me chocolate from say, I go say 5 years or 6 years.
Which is a woody chocolate crash pa.
Oh, me diache. Deso. Me say ne den so dey free, ye kuya for the same. Ama ankran for ene mbrofo no nya bidi na ye wo mode.
Me chira say chocolate we. Enu nie chocolate nia. So tiano fasika na mame. Tiano na kanwa no na hwe.
No, de pa.
That was saying mame so me so hwe.
Wede kuku pa.
Ghana kuku ankasa.
Ghana kuku pa. Mpacha obusa o kan asem bi mentwa wa no. Wo se ye chocolate nso we no. Se dia ye kuku no. Ono nti na chocolate ye desa no. Ye Ghana ha ye wo kwan dia hata ye kuku. Me metkana Africa da. Minim se dia mo so hata mo kuku. Ye de no. Uti kuku no a e bia mefuwe. Mitimiti kuku ni nyina na wi a time wo kra member. Mbema me yereso akoko na guo boy na me gya no hosa akọ ade kyen a won hwa mentimi mbabo kokko be di be 2 days aha no aw hafe no mu se nsuo no mu ayi kakra no na mbabo me boso a na me de kodu haban eburu kokko no
ka se obo ana che se wa wo hata no
aha me bo mbaburu
okay
mbe kambo makata so
makata so na ferment kakra
aha na eburu na heat no eburu na man nsuo no eye etwe facha otwinde facha na nyeme kuru kasa aha
na ise dia
eburu kakra no 3 days no mbeba ba bie so na mapesema yi ne bi ne nyina na asie hode no obohu se na ye white ense da mburu na medane no no a na soro de no kofom na fom de no so ba soro na me saka haban no e kata so item de nsuo to yo de a mbesa twen 3 days na kokko no ya 6 days awo burie no na metuba fi awia ne ntino ebedi 3-4 days no na abura awie sa kokko no obu ba okropo owie abawu se ede wo no kokko no so emburi kase a owie a enyo no pa
senia moye ne nti na magana
ya ye kokko no ya ye kokko se de ye de no ono a na de nti na we na ye de sa
kahwe isaka kahwe
we de ka hu ya ko de do breme
menya ya kana
we de nso ye
Cocoa farmers at Achim Akoko are sending a clear message to the government to protect the cocoa industry, which they affectionately call the golden tree that birthed the golden fruits. This plea comes as the farmers face numerous challenges, including the devastating effects of illegal mining or galamsey, which is destroying their farms and livelihoods. It's a desperate situation, and the farmers.
Case of Brazil, the first attack, so to say, onslaught, was on steel. Well, many of the industries in the United States depend on the steel they buy from Brazil, so they are our allies. So we're talking to them to see if we can come to some negotiation. Negotiation is always better. But if it doesn't work, then we have to see what we can do. In the past, we would go to the WTO and ask for the dispute settlement mechanism to solve. But unfortunately, the US, that was in the first Trump government, but in a way it was weakening before already. Doesn't work, so we have to think. Maybe we can coordinate with other countries that are hit in the same way.
So, Rebecca, this system seems to be under, I think it's more than just attack, actually. I don't have to be diplomatic like Wolfgang does. I mean, it seems to me that this old system is dead. And the world that UNCTAD was there to police has been radically shaken up and probably is not coming back. How do you then react to that?
Well, two reactions first. We were not happy with the system, but as Celso says, we wanted the rules to be respected, because it's worse to not have a system than to have a system that you want to change. We have a system that we want to change, but not having a system is worse for everybody. So this is my first reaction. So there were things that needed to change, and I think that we have to recognize that part of the discontent comes from reality. People are not happy. So something has to change in terms of the global economy to be more inclusive. Now, let me just cool a little bit the funeral that you have proposed.
I'm provoking you to have a discussion.
And say that still today, 80% of trade is happening under rules, under the WTO rules or under the free trade or bilateral or regional agreements. 80% of trade is still there. And we have two things that have shaken the world in concrete terms. That is the steel tariff and the 10% tariff on China. The rest has not happened yet.
But it's been announced, right?
But we don't know if it's a negotiation, if there will be a negotiation or not. If there is a negotiation, we are in a different position. If there will be a unilateral imposition of the reciprocity that yesterday Trump announced as a study, that will really go to the heart of the system that we have today. Because reciprocity in the WTO is that you give the same treatment to everybody when you decide to give it to one country. And this is not the reciprocity we are hearing in the announcement of yesterday. So I think that in a way we have also to wait to see what will be the concrete, if it will be a negotiation with the countries within agreements, or if there will be a complete, jeopardizing completely the main rule of the WTO.
Can I push you a little bit on, and you said that I used the funeral. Let's continue the funeral metaphor. Why I think it is a funeral. Even if this is a negotiating tactic, it is a president whose view is that it is America's right to use tariffs as a negotiating tactic unilaterally whenever it feels like it. I think that is a given now. Whether or not he wants to move to a more tariff system-wide approach, the notion that the tariffs are a negotiating tactic unilaterally is not what the multilateral system is based on.
That's fair. But let me say that also trade has changed. What you are saying is true. We don't like it. It's not that I like it. So I prefer the second worst than the first worst. Because it will be different for the developing countries, it will be different for the world. But let me say that also the structure of trade has changed. 30% of trade today is South-South, 30%, yes? 40% is North-South, South-North, okay? And 30% is North-North. So there will be a 30% that will be very affected, but there is the South-South trade that has been the really growing part of trade in the last 2 decades. Yes? For the first time, South-South trade is so important. And if we think about the opportunities there, and I go to what the president said, the African Free Trade Area, for example, can add to the trade in Africa, $3.4 trillion. Yes? And that depends on Africa. It doesn't depend on the US. So the self-reliance of Africa is not only aid, it's also economic growth. Most of the population, young population, will be in Africa. They have a huge opportunity, and it will change the structure of the global economy. That's my point.
That's a really interesting point. And Mr. President, I'll turn to that because we spoke about it in the context of aid and you mentioned it in trade. Let's talk about what this, and to use the phrase here, multipolarization, what is the new system that you would want to create both for trade and aid, assuming that the US is doing what it's doing? What is everyone else going to need to do now?
Well, self-reliance is not only at the national level, but on the continental level. And there's good news coming out of Africa, like she said. Most countries have ratified the protocol on continental free trade in Africa. And that trade is beginning to grow steadily. We're able to export tariff-free into our countries. Of course, there are obstacles because our trade channels have been the colonial trade channels between us and Europe and not amongst ourselves. So one of the things we need to deal with first is how we develop the infrastructure to be able to exchange goods amongst ourselves. Already, most countries are allowing free movement of people. And so if we have free movement of goods and services across the continent, I think that it will fill a huge gap in South-South trade, and that will benefit all our countries.
And do you think that the actions of the Trump administration will accelerate Africans' determination to do this? Will it finally actually happen, the African Free Trade Area?
Definitely it will. Definitely we will learn to be more self-reliant as a continent and to trade more amongst ourselves because there's a lot of room there for expanding trade.
Is that something that you think would also happen with Brazil? That there would be extra efforts to have free trade areas with other groups, that there would be a focus, a sort of ex-US focus on trade links?
I think so. And I think you coming from Britain would understand. The king is dead. Long live the king. So the question is, the question for us really is not so much to mourn about the old order, but to build the new order. And I think that the new order, the South-South cooperation, and maybe some northern countries also as well, that's what we're seeking. I mean, that's what's part of this multipolarization that is mentioned. Brazil, for instance, had opened it, had shut. I hope it will open again. For instance, an office of our agricultural reserves company in Ghana, in Accra, Embrapa. So I think we need much more of that. And let me say, again, coming back to the tariffs, what sounds very absurd to Brazil is that Brazil is one of the few big countries to which the United States has a surplus.
Yes.
So you cannot speak about, let us say, reciprocity. What's the reciprocity? Well, even reciprocity in the WTO and the old GATT, it's not the same product. It has to be seen globally. So anyway, I'm very pessimistic about the old order, especially what we used to be called an rules-based order, but we didn't know who made the rules, and we go to an order which is really an international law order in which South-South cooperation will be much bigger.
But will it be? It may be rules-based. Will it be a free trade world order? Because quite often the big southern players, including Brazil, but India, have not been terribly free trade focused. Are you saying you want to create a new order committed to free trade rules-based? I'm coming to you in just a second, but
maybe I could give up the Brazil. I can say that I was a negotiator, so it sounds self-serving. But I was together with the British one who represented the European Union, then Peter Mandelson, were the two, and Pascal Lamy, of course, was the Director General, were the people who fought more strongly to keep the Doha route going. Unfortunately, it went away, but the real destruction of the world order in terms of trade, since you're saying, is the question of the appeal system, the dispute settlement system. So that's what would really put us in a position to challenge the United States without fighting it, just giving it to the judges. That's what I should do.
I just want to say that we don't have a free trade, even before Trump. Yes, what we had is an agreement of how we will behave, and we had consolidated tariffs.